Not. David Shulkin was fired yesterday as Secretary of Veterans Affairs, the last high-level Obama appointee in the administration, and the subject, as we'll discuss, of controversy as well as a probe by the department's Inspector General. Quickly, though, a word about his replacement, Dr. and Navy Rear Admiral Ronnie Jackson. He's the president's personal physician, by all accounts a highly talented doctor. He's perhaps best known, though, for his effusive praise of his patients' good health.
I think he will remain fit for duty for the remainder of this term and even for the remainder of another term if he's elected.
Explain to me how a guy who eats McDonald's and fried chicken and all those Diet Cokes and who never exercises is in as good a shape as you say he's in.
It's called genetics. I don't know. It's some people have just great genes. I would say the answer to your question is he has incredibly good genes, and it's just the way God made him.
Well, CNN has learned that the president was impressed with this performance and how Dr. Jackson handled himself on camera, factored into getting the job, which, keeping him honest, involves managing a department of 370,000 employees, providing health care and other benefits to millions of veterans. It's something outgoing Secretary David Shulkin grappled with, for better or worse. I spoke with him about it just before airtime. Secretary Shulkin, you wrote in your op-ed today that you accomplished a lot in your time at the VA and that you think you got let go because your opposition to privatizing the VA. How do you see that? What's the evidence of that?
Well, I think since I've been secretary, we've gotten a lot done in a bipartisan way. And, I believe strongly, Anderson, that when it comes to VA and national security, we can't make this a political issue. And I've been running this department trying to work with both sides of the aisle. But there were some political appointees within my administration that didn't see it that way and really wanted us to take a much harder stance towards privatization. I wasn't willing to do that. I don't think that's the right thing for veterans, and I stood up against them.
So you think it was Trump appointees within the VA?
Yes, I do.
Well, you did take a trip to Europe last year. The Inspector General of the VA investigated, found, among other things, that the Wimbledon tickets you accepted, that was an improper gift. The large portions of the trip were for personal reasons. Your wife's travel shouldn't have been paid for by the VA. How big a part did that play in your dismissal?
Well, listen, I've been very clear about this. This wasn't a trip of the 5 allies that we've been doing for 43 years. Every VA secretary attends. My wife was invited. She's a physician. Every other VA secretary has brought their wives when they're invited to conferences. It was all pre-approved by our ethics department. There were no surprises here. And it was a single coach airfare. When the Inspector General looked at it 6 months later and had concerns, I wrote a check to the government. So I think that this was an issue that clearly had been dealt with, and it was used in a political way to try to limit my effectiveness.
Do you think it was the investigation was political? I mean, it's the VA's Inspector General, which is an apolitical office. Their responsibility is to provide fair oversight, obviously, in the VA. Do you think there was politics in their decision?
No, I'm not making any type of statement like that about the Inspector General. As you said, the Inspector General has as its mission to investigate. I think that's totally appropriate. They had certain findings. I think the way that these findings were used in a political way, not by the Inspector General, but by the political appointees within VA.
CNN is reporting that you received warnings from the White House not to go on that trip. I'm wondering who from the White House warned you, and why then did you go on the trip?
Well, it's simply not true. Absolutely never happened. Everybody knew about this trip. We had notified all of the national security agencies, the White House, everybody in my organization knew about it. This was not a surprise trip. It had been on the books for close to 2 years, in fact, because that's how often these 5 allies meet together. And there was never anybody who raised a single concern about this. As I said, everything was pre-approved.
You said it was political appointees who were behind this. I'm wondering, can you name them? Who in particular are you talking about? Because I had read you had problems with even the communications department there. You didn't feel that they were representing you well.
Well, look, fortunately, I'm not in office. I don't need to play this politics. I have no axe to grind here. But all of the political appointees that were involved in this, they've all, their names have been in the newspapers. Their memos where they plotted to get rid of me as secretary, my chief of staff, my deputy secretary. That's all in the public domain. This isn't anybody making any of this up. There's all documentation about this. And look, my focus and where I hope that the Department of Veteran Affairs goes is to get back to its business that it needs to be focused on, which is fixing this system, because our veterans need it.
You know Dr. Ronnie Jackson, the man who President Trump tapped to replace you. I want to read you something that John Brennan, the former CIA director, tweeted about him today. Quote, I personally know and greatly respect Ronnie Jackson as a terrific doctor and Navy officer. However, he has neither the experience nor the credentials to run the very large and complex VA. This is a terribly misguided nomination that will hurt both a good man and our veterans. Is he right?
Well, I also know Dr. Jackson. He's a friend of mine. I have considerable respect for him. He's a great public servant. And I will do everything that I can to help Dr. Jackson succeed in this position. This is a tough position. There's no doubt about it. This is one of the most complex organizations anywhere to run.
This is a huge management role here. I mean, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of employees, hundreds of thousands of customers.
Yeah, we're talking about 375,000 employees, a budget of close to $200 billion next year, and a very complex organization. And so it is going to be a challenge for anybody to take. Fortunately, we have a process that we go through where Senate confirmation is required, where all these questions will be brought out. But look, I have confidence that Dr. Jackson is a person who is honorable and cares about our veterans.
But can somebody without management experience, whether it's Dr. Jackson or somebody else, someone without managing a large organization, as you say, hundreds of thousands of employees, can they do this job?
This is a tough job for anybody to do. What the successful secretary needs to do is to build a team around them, because this is bigger than any one person, and to work very collaboratively with veteran service organizations and Congress.
Secretary Shulkin, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, just ahead, we're going to take you to that part of the border wall that President Trump says is well on its way to being built, only it isn't. We're keeping him honest ahead.